Afternoon, everybody. I have notes, but I'm gonna go a bit off script, and we're gonna talk a bit from the heart. We're gonna talk a bit from the heart here about why I'm here. First, recognizing the fantastic work that is being done here, the work to develop young minds and code writing. Particularly grateful to Michael for inviting me here today. I am not a technical person, as you can tell. I'm too old to know anything about technical stuff. This is the province of young people, and that's what you all need to understand, that this world and this space belongs to young and courageous and diverse people to figure out how to work. So what I want to do for a minute is tell you a bit about me and kind of how I get here. Why I think this is an important conversation to have as you all plot a course toward how you really build a technical capability that really transforms the world. The first thing you should know about me, I currently am the Chief Diversity Officer of a small beverage company in Atlanta that you may have heard of. So I'm gonna tell you a bit about me, tell you a bit about how I got to this role, tell you a bit about what I think this role has to do with the reason that you all are here today, and then we'll look forward to a discussion in the panel format that Michael will lead. Michael mentioned Gateway. I am proud to be an advisory board member to Gateway. I'm proud to be a part of a discussion about how we create opportunities for people of color in this emerging space. In this emerging technological frontier. I am a lawyer by training. I spent 10 years in private practice of law before joining Coca-Cola about 13 years ago as an in-house lawyer. I was a bankruptcy lawyer, interestingly enough, in private practice. And bankruptcy lawyers are, in the legal space, the equivalent of pathologists in the medical space. Part of what I did as part of representing bankrupt companies was I spent a lot of time thinking about why companies failed, what didn't work, why a person who was a phenomenal cook and chef to his friends and family members, well, why his restaurant failed, or a person who was a fantastic artist, why his art gallery failed, or a person who was good with his hands and built and created things, why his construction or remodeling company failed. And at the end of the day, I think the common thread and the thing that we'll want to spend some time talking about here is that the academic pursuit, in order to realize its potential, has to, at some point, be connected to a commercial outcome, and there's a bridge that has to be built there. This environment will be for people who are able to create that commercialization of the good ideas. And we'll talk a bit about why that is. I grew up in Houston, Texas. I grew up in the inner city of Houston, in a neighborhood that doesn't look terribly unlike this neighborhood. I knew no lawyers growing up. My father had gone to college on the GI Bill as a non-traditional student. My mother didn't have the opportunity to go to college. And like many black people of that generation, really worked in what Reverend Jesse Jackson has called in the third stage of what he refers to as the Freedom Symphony. So the Freedom Symphony works something like this. My great-great-grandfather was a slave. He was part of the chattel slave trade that we've all heard about and read about. And so his objective, his freedom objective, was freedom, was physical freedom of his body. And people of his age, their physical objective was the freedom of their bodies. My grandfather was a free person, but his personal objective was subsistence. That was basic human needs. That was being fed, being clothed, that his family was fed and clothed. My father went to college in the third stage, and his objective was to achieve education. Education to lift his family out of subsistence and to create opportunities for his children, me and my siblings, to go to college and to create opportunities and get good jobs and lift ourselves into a middle class lifestyle. So the last movement of that symphony is you. And what is expected of you, quite simply, is to unharness all of that untapped potential and all of that cumulative effort to build and create economic prosperity and wealth and ownership. I was mentioning in the green room, it never occurred. I'll be 50 years old next month, guys. It never occurred to people of my generation to start businesses. It never occurred to us to try to commercialize our ideas. It never occurred to us to try to step outside of the rubric of the public sector or big company private sector to build foundations of wealth and prosperity for ourselves. And that is what you are doing. You are pioneers in that respect. But it will be a difficult road, and it will require some different competencies other than just showing that you know how to be technically good at what you do. I went to law school, and after joining the company, represented Coca-Cola in all manner of lawsuits and litigations. And what I learned about Coca-Cola, and what is true about all big companies, that'll be important for you to know, is that we're all in the innovative space. Coca-Cola, as a company, was founded in 1886 in Atlanta by a pharmacist who originally marketed the product as a medical elixir. It was sold initially as a cure for headaches and all sorts of other ailments. And as a result of it having been marketed in that way, it was sold in a drugstore. So a guy by the name of John Pemberton, who was a pharmacist, created the product. And for the first 50 years of its existence, the Coca-Cola company was a single product company. And then something called innovation began to happen, and other products began to become developed. And the company attempted over time, as other companies do, to anticipate evolving consumer tastes and preferences. Today's Coca-Cola company, the company that I was able to represent as a lawyer for a number of years, operates now in 207 countries. It has 350 brands, inclusive of 3,500 different products. It is one of the 100 largest companies in the world. It is a Fortune 100 company. It's one of the 30 companies. You hear discussion about the Dow Jones Industrial Average. That's 30 companies whose economic health is considered by Wall Street to be a surrogate for the overall health of the economy. And Coca-Cola is one of the 30 companies that comprise the Dow Jones Industrial Average. That's all it is. Coca-Cola has a presence in social media, the product has a placement on Facebook, and to my amazement, 75 million people have liked Coca-Cola on Facebook. Coca-Cola has 130,000 employees. There are over 70 nationalities represented at the headquarters in Atlanta where I work. All conceivable nationalities, all conceivable ethnicities, races, orientations, all different, all bringing unique perspective and insight to the marketplace of ideas that drive what is in essence an innovation exercise within the company. Coca-Cola is a $50 billion company, growing every day. It's $20 billion brands, led by brand Coke, which is valued at $78 billion. I share all this to say that one day, a long time ago, Coca-Cola was a startup, as are many of the large companies that are there. So the question is, how does an innovation, how does an idea evolve from a place of a concept in somebody's mind to become a large commercial enterprise? Consider the following. I think it's a combination of passion. I think it's a combination of a willingness to stretch out of one's comfort zone and develop competencies that are not necessarily innate. Passion. Bill Gates reportedly began to tinker with computers as a junior high school student. Sam Walton, who ultimately founded Walmart, took $5,000 of savings from his stint in the Army and opened a a variety store, a five and dime store, a Notion store. Now Walmart is the largest company in the world. All of these are examples of instances where somebody has married or found the high intersection of personal passion, some interest in developing something that it meets an unmet need in the marketplace, and then there is a secret sauce, if you will, that gets them to a point where their idea has been able to become commercialized and developed. We are innovative people. Our ancestors had to be innovative people. So the question now for you young people, as you think about how you innovate and how you change the competitive landscape, is what must you do in addition to being a good cook? What must you do in addition to being good with your hands? What must you do in addition to being good at code writing? What must you do in addition to the core skills that bring you here by interest in order to really transform the world, which I think you have the capacity to do? What must you do? Well, I was in New York a couple of weeks ago and at a conference that was hosted by the Rainbow Push Coalition, Reverend Jesse Jackson's organization. And Steve Ballmer was one of the luncheon speakers. And everybody know who Steve Ballmer is? You guys are tech people. Steve Ballmer, of course, one of the founders, former CEO of Microsoft, and now the owner of the Los Angeles Clippers NBA team. And many have heard about the circumstances under which Mr. Ballmer became the owner of the team and the comments made by the former owner of the team. But what was more interesting to me was how Mr. Ballmer talked about the intersection of his experience at Microsoft and what that did to inform how he was going to transform the business of basketball in the NBA. He said some things that I think that are important for us to maybe take some time and reflect upon. The first thing he said was, the entire world is technology space. Technology is now not just a standalone activity that we've left to sort of the people behind the curtain. It pervades, it invades every aspect of our lives. So in basketball, where you'll see me innovate with chip technology around tickets. You will see us innovate with cameras mounted into the ceilings of the basketball venues, essentially eliminating the need for, if you've been to a basketball game, those guys are the statisticians that are counting shots and missed shots and fouls. He said, we'll be able to do all that on an automated basis. We'll have the entire floor wired, so we'll be able to see and we'll be able to track where defenses have been moved. We will be able to leverage technology in a way that will be imperceptible to people, but will improve the quality of their experience. So I'm going to suggest to you all that rather than being technical people, what you're really in the business to do is to improve the quality of people's lives by the ideas that you have. But in order to do that, you've got to commercialize them. And you commercialize them, in order to commercialize them, you're going to be required to do some very specific things. First thing you're going to have to do is that you're going to have to figure out how to be a relationship builder. How many of you have heard or have perhaps experienced the stereotype about folks who work in the technical space as not really being very socially savvy? Yeah, well. You're going to have to figure out how to relationship build. The three core competencies of the 21st century are your ability to relationship build, your ability to connect with people, your ability to inspire confidence, your ability to look people in the eye and convince them that they need your product. I remember reading Steve Jobs' biography, and Steve Jobs talked about a moment when he reached into his pocket at the first Apple meeting and said, we've got a new product, it's called the iPod. And a marketing guy in the back of the room kind of raised his hand and says, how are we supposed to sell people something that they didn't know they needed? That's innovation. that is creating a nexus between what it is you have and some unmet need, perhaps even some unarticulated need that makes life better. Now, we can't imagine our lives without our Apple devices or our Android devices. In fact, I was having a humorous conversation with my 16-year-old who asked me somewhat quizzically how it was possible to even go to college without the internet. Because I went to college before there was an internet invented. How do you do that? How do you get information without being able to Google stuff? Yeah. So believe it or not, we have these things called books, and you can kind of crack them open and kind of look through them. But how do you do that? How has the landscape of people who figured out how to do this, how's that transformed the way we do business? I've had the good fortune working for Coca-Cola, both as a lawyer and as a chief diversity officer, to travel to about 30 different countries. I've been to 5 continents, and have seen the impact of technology as it is commercialized in a way to change people's lives. M-Pesa, the banking, the Africans have completely leapfrogged the notion of brick and mortar branch banking. You guys understand what I mean? You walk into the branch and, hello, John, how can I help you? Africans have leapfrogged that. There are no branch banking. There was not brick and mortar infrastructure in Africa, but now every African has got this ability based on their phones to move money. They're working in the city to move money into the village where they are from. They've got the ability, getting out of a taxi, where the taxi driver says, here's my account number, you type it into your phone, and that's how they pay. They've moved to a paperless, currency-less transaction-based economy, ostensibly on the strength of technology. Technology that was probably not unique in its technology sense, but unique in the ability of somebody to articulate how this technology made life better. That's what you will have to do. You'll have to stake relationships. You will have to inspire confidence. And you will have to be able to grow and enroll people in a vision and articulate a vision of how what it is you do gets people to where they need to be. But it shouldn't be missed on you that the innovation that is happening now in the world is largely happening in countries where people look like you. Largely in countries. I read a data point recently about U.S. graduate schools, MBA programs. Largely now the province of international students. You guys know our math and science capabilities in this country are causing us to lose what people term as our exceptionalism. Well, the reason why international students are advancing beyond American students in graduate school is precisely that. Half of the MCAT, the entrance exam to business school, is quantitative. So we've got to figure out how we leverage both the fact that we are multicultural, that we're black people, or that we're LGBT, or that we're women, or that we are Asian. Figure out how we commercialize that and basically bake that into a narrative that allows us to advance the technology that people need. People don't need to understand how your watch was made, but they do need to be able to tell time. People don't need to understand the science behind how your car came on. They just want to be able to press the button. I was in a taxi in the Philippines about a year ago, and the car picked me up, and I got in it, and the guy said, well, Mr. Lewis, it'll be about an hour and a half ride to the hotel. He said, but the whole car is a Wi-Fi hotspot, so if you need to work, you can just take your computer out. These aren't technological innovations that are unique unto themselves, but what they represent is the differentiation of someone like you, who coupled their ability to engage technology and advance and develop technology that was meaningful, but also craft a compelling narrative and story and vision about how that work was going to make life better and make life different. And that's happening all over the world. It's happening in exciting spaces, and it's happening in ways that candidly are really transforming how we do business in the world. Soon you'll be able to take out a smartphone and hold it to a vending machine and press 2 or 3 buttons and have a product come out. We've already got smart technology in Coke machines that allow you to that allows a person who services the machine to essentially dial in diagnostically and see the velocity of the turn of product. Well, at that location, at that college, we seem to be selling more Sprite than anything else. Really transformative. So that has a carbon footprint impact, that has a workforce impact. All of these things are kind of out of the box and really represent the grand opportunity. So as you think about this work, I used to, and I confess, in my lawyer days, when I used to speak to young lawyers and young law students, I used to tell them, and I apologize in advance for it, I used to tell them, I said, this is a contact sport. And you got to get out into the world and you got to engage people. And if you didn't want to engage people, you should have gone somewhere and learned how to write code. I said I'm sorry. So I'm telling those of you who write code, you're going to have to engage people too. And you're going to have to engage the world, because the only way that the world will experience your genius is if you figure out how to develop those skills, if you figure out how to develop the relationship building skills and the influencing skills and the inspirational skills and the public speaking skills. It's the soft skills that are going to inform your success. It's the ability to connect with people at almost an emotional level with the work that you do. That's really what Apple did, isn't it? They connected with you a bit emotionally. You got to figure out how to tap into that part and to think of your work in a way that defines it by how it improves people's lives. And think about how that becomes your contribution to this last step of a symphony. You guys are great, you're brilliant, and this is what the world requires you to do. This is what the sacrifices that preceded you and these other generations were about. This is what you've been called to do. So I want you to be inspired as you leave here, and I want you to understand that this isn't an act of charity. The world needs you. The world needs bright, multicultural, brilliant, dynamic leaders to go out and to chart this new way. It won't be the 50-year-olds. It won't be the 60-year-olds. It'll be you. So I want you to embrace that, and I want you to understand, and I want you to soak it in, and I'm glad you're here, and I'm so glad to have been invited to come and talk to you for a bit, and I thank you for your attention.